Okay, we will start the licensing board meeting for today, March 6th at 4 o'clock. We have a 4-item agenda, but I believe one of them is going to be moved. And before we start, we do have a full board. We do have Captain Dugan sitting in for Chief Keenan. It's always a pleasure to have you here, Captain.
Thank you, sir.
Just a pleasure. And with that, let me just read the open meeting law. Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made whether perceived or unperceived by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible. So, with that, we will start with agenda item number 1, hearing regarding the request of the Chris Smeglin Memorial Fund for a special use permit for their annual Smeg's Legs Run on Saturday, October 6, 2018. And it is a 5-mile run and a 2-mile walk and a 2-mile run for the middle school students, and it is going to be held from 9 to noon on October 6th. And with us we have Jane or Michael Smeglin.
Michael, right.
Michael, why don't you tell us what's going on, okay?
Okay, it's the 10th annual run for the Smeg's Legs Run. And the money raised, we're a 501c3, the money raised goes to the Access Sports America, Broad Meadows Middle School Scholarship Athletic Program, and the House Neck Community Council Fund. I think to date, we've raised a little over $40,000 for those three groups. So it takes place in House Neck. It starts at the Broad Meadows Middle School and goes down C Street, all the way down to Bird Street, and then down Edgewater and back on Spring Street to Rhoda Street and back to Broad Meadows. And are there any questions? I don't know how much you want me to go into detail.
We want you to sell this thing.
Okay.
Tell everybody all about it. Can I take the, do you have a flyer for it at all?
Yes, I
Because
do.
if you give me a flyer, and I'll bring it over to cable TV tomorrow, and they will actually put it on their bulletin board when the time is right. It's a little early for it right now, I think, since it's not until October. I got the map all in here. So this is what I need right here.
Anyone else?
Hi, guys.
And everything starts and ends at Broad Meadows. Do we do any
Yes.
food or anything like that, or is it just like water and
Michael, can we get
snacks?
one of the
maps.
map?
Oh, here. Nicole.
Oh,
Yeah, plenty.
just so that the offices can have it, help you out.
All right.
Oh, thanks.
Oh, sorry.
Get a new one.
Oh, you ran it once.
In terms of food, we have beverages, bagels, bananas, there is a chili, we have a licensed food provider for that.
Okay, good.
And we have the approval of the principal, Mr. Gilbert.
Seeing that, does anybody in the audience have any comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, we will close that portion of the meeting. Board members, any comments, questions, concerns? Looking for a motion then.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to grant the request of the 10th Annual Chris Smeglin Memorial Fund for a special use permit for the 10th Annual Smeg's Leg Run on Saturday, October 3rd, 2018. Events include a 5-mile run, a 2-mile walk, and a 2-mile run for middle school students. The event will run from 9 a.m. to noon, represented by Michael Smeglin.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to grant the request of Chris Smeglin Memorial Fund for a special use permit for the annual Smeg's Legs Run on Saturday, October 6, 2018. Any rain date?
No,
No. And that is a rain or shine event. It starts at Broad Meadows School. It starts at 9 a.m. People want to sign up at any time before, like around 8 a.m.?
sign-ups at 7:30.
7:30,
Yes.
okay. All in favor?
Aye.
You're all set.
Thank you very
Good
much.
luck, okay?
Thank you.
And agenda item number 2 has been continued until our next meeting. And this is agenda item number 3. Sully, come on up. This is Brian Sullivan of Sully Spa at 28 Chestnut Street. He's here regarding the request of Sully Spa, 28 Chestnut Street, for an extension of premise onto the sidewalk for a party in celebration of their 84th anniversary on June 2nd, 2018. Mr. Brian Sullivan. How are you, Brian?
Very good, yeah?
Very good. 84
Yes.
years.
You was the first
Looks like you was.
It does. Sometimes I feel like I was. I think he's the longest consecutive owner, family-owned bar in the city.
Yes. According to Joe Shea.
Yeah.
According to Joe Shea.
According,
Well,
we should
that's
make,
Bible.
we should put an asterisk next to that. Your dad or your grandfather?
My grandfather.
Your grandfather opened up right after Prohibition?
Yeah,
Look at that.
34.
Imagine
Got it
that.
open before that.
1930. It probably was open before that. I think the statute of limitations might have ended on the speakeasy next to the Strand, right?
If you count the years before, you could be like George Burns and have it be 100.
100, yeah. You do have an absolutely phenomenal picture behind the bar at Sully's that really shows, you know, Quincy Center in the early 40s and stuff, so it's a good picture.
In the
What,
day.
do you know the date of that picture? Because it came up in the mayor's office the other day as a discussion.
It's about 55. 1955.
Because Cottage Ave, Cottage Street is
There's-
still there. There's all houses still on, in the Hancock lot, right?
There's no steeple on
Yeah.
St. John's.
Oh, there's no? No?
Of course, he noticed. So,
Really?
that's what he said, yeah.
I'll have to go back and look. Because it's, I don't know, St. John's might be in it, but it's way over in the corner.
Yeah, right.
Depends how much you had to drink.
Look them over after.
Look it over, yep.
Happy.
We'll be in to
We might have to do a
talk
little
about it.
road trip there, okay. So, this is, he's done this, I think it's, how many years have you been going outside now? Almost 10?
Yeah, close to.
Close to 10. So, we've never had any issues or anything else like that. Before I open it up to the board, anybody in the audience have any comments, questions, concerns? Seeing none, we'll close that portion, and I am looking for a motion. Oh, before we do that, how late are you outside till?
Midnight,
Midnight? Okay, so
noon to
it's-
midnight.
And do you have entertainment outside?
No, the entertainment's all inside. Jim Edwards.
Yep.
another well-known name to this board. And it's June 2nd, and it's just the one day, right?
Yes.
Noon to midnight, okay. Looking for a motion, members.
Chair, I'd like to make a motion to grant the request of Sully Spa, 28 Chestnut Street, for an extension of premises onto the sidewalk with tables and chairs for a party in celebration of their 84th anniversary on June 2nd, 2018, represented by Mr. Brian Sullivan.
Second?
Motion made and seconded to grant the request of Sully Spa at 28 Chestnut Street for an extension of premise for their 84th anniversary on June 2nd, 2018, from noon to midnight, represented by Mr. Brian Sullivan. All in favor?
Aye.
You're all set, Brian.
Thank you
Good
very
luck,
much.
okay?
Thank you.
So, last item on the agenda, agenda item number 4. Hearing to review the conditions at Manar Auto, 305 Quincy Shore Drive. This is a 6-month follow-up to our meeting back in August 15th. And on August 15th, hearing to review the conditions at Manar Auto, 305. Complaints have been received regarding the number of vehicles, conditions of the premise with Mr. Roger Elner. Mr. Elner was requested to appear due to a large number of vehicles on the premise, and in particular unregistered vehicles. Mr. Elner's attorney spoke on behalf of Mr. Elner and expressed that they will review conditions of property and make landscaping improvements if necessary. Chairman Shealy expressed that the board wants Mr. Elner to be successful, but cited an example of a white van that has been on the property unregistered for 2+ years. Mr. Elner's attorney expressed that in terms of complying with the 10-car limit, that has been a challenge due to early and late drop-offs and pickups of vehicles. Director Duker and Chairman Shealy reiterated that the primary issues are unregistered vehicles and the volume of vehicles. Citation was issued recently due to 30+ cars being on the premise. At the time of the hearing, they were back in compliance, and they must stay in compliance and keep premise clean. Director Duker made a motion to keep on file for 6 months, seconded by Chief Keenan, and it was voted all in favor. So that's a quick review of the meeting from before, and I will say this, the white van is gone. Not too bad. So-
And I think there's been landscaping improvements too since.
Not an event anymore in my product.
That's good. So why don't we open it up and tell us what we've done?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Your summary was pretty accurate at the time. If you recall, one of the issues that we had brought up, or one of the circumstances that we brought up, is that this is an operating busy service station, so there is a influx of cars at different times during the day, on different days, unknown to my client, what a day is going to be like. I believe since the last hearing, I don't believe there's been any incidences or any complaints issued. I do believe an inspector came by one day, but I don't think anything came about that. So unless the board has any questions, I think that being back here for the 6-month review, I don't think there's really anything that I can add other than that my client's in compliance with the obligations of the license as it was reduced in August of 2013. If you recall, members of the board, in 2013, the station was actually reduced from 19 spaces to 10 spaces and also provided for 2 used car spaces at that point. So I think that, in terms of my client's operation of the business, in terms of being a cooperative member of the community, including with the board, with officials, and also with neighborhood people that sometimes leave their cars there in emergencies. My client was actually just telling me with the storm last week, I guess some people couldn't get down Squantum Drive, so some people asked if they could leave cars at my client's station, which he graciously absolutely said yes. So unless the board has any questions, I don't believe there's anything I can add.
Board members, any comments, questions? Mr. Duca?
So I wanted to report to the board members, on February 8th, I went there to do an inspection at the request of Board Councilor Bill Harris. There were 35 vehicles there, most of them with no registration plates, some of them with crash damage. It was pretty packed. I went by the next day, 2 days later. Some of them were moved. There were still 20 vehicles. The same vehicles were there. There's a yellow vehicle, a white van, a blue sports car, a red truck, a white cube van, some damaged vehicles, vehicles with no plates. There's a snowbank in front of many of them that has been there since the prior storm 2 weeks earlier. Tires and trash, and a black truck that is there. These are vehicles without plates.
So a few things in response to that. Again, when you go there on any certain day, at different days, you may find a large number of vehicles on the lot. Some of them may be unregistered. Oftentimes there's a large number of vehicles because of inspections or for repairs. My client, I have something I have discussed with my client, as he's told me. There are occasions where vehicles are brought in during the night and left for repair. My client also does a lot of service work for other used car automotive dealers where the cars are brought in to see if they can be repaired. Sometimes the cars will be on the lot for a day or two until the vehicles that cannot be repaired sometimes are on the lot for a day or two until they're picked up by a tow truck and removed to wherever they're being taken. I think my main point is that I also made the last time we were in front of the board is, again, this is a transient business from the standpoint of you don't know how many cars are going to be in the lot in the course of a day. You also have a situation where cars are being dropped off. You also have a situation on occasion where, again, my client being a member of the neighborhood, and I've actually been there on a weekend where I've asked my client, what is this, not the white van I don't think, but what is this van? It was a marked van with ladders and things on it. I said, what is this van doing? And my client said, he's not sure. He thinks it's somebody in the neighborhood that left the car there for several hours. So I think the bottom line, though, is that the reduction in the license in August of 2013, I believe allows for 10 cars to be left on the lot. And I believe at night, there has not been more than 10 cars left on the lot. So And I believe that's the purpose of the ordinance, is to make sure that you're not storing cars above the 10 cars that are on the lot. We do not dispute, sir, nor do we dispute to anybody on the board, that at times there will be a large number of vehicles on this lot during the day. Again, my client's a busy service station, people coming in for gas, inspections, repairs, cars coming in from other used car dealers, cars dropped off in the night. We don't dispute that. We think, though, the bottom line is that we're not aware of any citations or anything for more than 10 cars being left on the lot overnight, which I think is I would think is the crux of the issue. I think you mentioned tires and some other, that I haven't, trash and other issues. Are you aware?
I can't speak for,
Just before you speak, just while it's fresh in my mind, I was there at 6:38 a.m. that particular morning. So those vehicles, 35 of them, were there overnight. They've been there, because I drive by there every day on my way to work. There's never a time when there's any less than 10 vehicles without plates. And I don't go out counting it every morning, but they are the same vehicles without plates, and they're pretty trashy looking, and many of them, well, some of them have damage. So I think I would disagree with what you are saying.
I'm obviously not by there anywhere near as much as you are, but the times that I've been by there, I don't think I've ever seen that many vehicles actually on the lot. I've been by there during the day where there's been a higher number of vehicles. Again, sir, I think the bottom line is that if my client was storing more than 10 vehicles on the lot overnight, that somebody, given the high visibility location, and given the fact that my client has been subject to some level of oversight, at least since last August and prior to August, because of the 2 citations, if you recall, that were issued in July of last year, that is, I think, what eventually brought us before the board to begin with. So I think my client is subject to a pretty substantial level of oversight in terms of how many cars he has in the lot. You might have caught a night where there could have been some cars left, or there could have been cars brought in. I don't know, and I can't address it, but I think that overall, my client is very observant of the 10-car limit overnight being left on the lot. Cars without plates and things, again, my client does a lot of work for other used car dealers, so I know at times he's got 1 or 2 cars on that he's allowed to have under his used car license to sell. But I think that the other cars are cars that he does repairs for other used car dealers, that again, sometimes they can't be repaired, so it's just a matter of waiting for the tow company to come pick them up.
sorry, I apologize, for the date of February 8th,
I'm sorry, I can't hear, sir.
for the date of February 8th, and I think, as I
I know
remember, I
it
told
was
you
nice and clean today when I went by.
my father passed away in end of January.
Yeah.
I had to go emergency to Lebanon for the funeral. And I came on the February 7th. And when I met you, I did apologize. I told you it is for only one time because I wasn't here. And I have many customers and many dealers. They kept their car and they were waiting for me. And it was only for exceptional one time. And I did ask you for 48 hours. After 48 hours, it went back down, right when we fixed them and send them back. And now every night we are in the limit,
And
back to normal.
Roger, can you just address the trash issue that the board member brought up?
Trash is, those used tires, we cannot throw them anywhere. We have to call Comfort Tire or special company because those are for environmental people, we cannot throw them anywhere. That's why we have to call them. They might be late one day or few hours, then they come to pick them up for not throw them in the dumpster.
Well, all I know is what I observed, and it looks like you're running an auto body shop, not only just car repair, and it looks like you got a lot of trash on the site, you got a lot of junk vehicles without plates, and I'm just reporting to the board, those are my observations.
If I can,
But again, sir, was that just the February 8th date, or is that?
You still have no less than 8 vehicles that are not moved whatsoever without plates.
which I believe under the license are allowed, provided they're not there for resale, that they're there for
I won't get
repair.
into semantics with it, but there's more cars than 10 there every day. And at some days, 20, and on that particular day, it was 35, in 6:30 in the morning.
And during the day.
At 6:30 in the morning, which tells me they were there. Listen, I go by there, I don't stop my vehicle and count the cars, but it's quite crowded there, usually. I didn't make it a point to stop. I got a call from the counselor on February 7th, and I did stop the next day and actually counted. So it's not like it happened on February 8th. It's been crowded, and it's just been an ongoing problem. This is not the first time.
Understood, but February 8th was the day where you counted the 35
I
cars.
actually got out and counted.
I think Mr. Olnar just addressed the situation. I don't think it's happened since.
Well, that's up to the board to figure out what they want to do.
Okay. Any other board members have any comments?
If I may.
Oh,
I did hear from a couple of the neighbors, and I did hear from Councilor Harris. And, no one wants to be a burden on the owner, but we do want you to be a good neighbor, okay? The dumpster was outside the fence after the snowstorm for after 48 hours. And we do have an ordinance that says within 48 hours, your property must be clean of snow and safe for all, okay? Some of the neighbors were saying they saw rodents going in and out of the dumpster, outside of the fenced area. Also, gas drop-offs at 3, 4 a.m. Have been a concern for the neighborhood. And, that's just not being a good neighbor. The trees planted were not maintained, so therefore they're all dead. Perhaps, maybe you're not a landscaper, I'm not a landscaper. Maybe, you get a contract with someone for the spring to come out and keep that, clean and landscaped with some mulch and, I don't know how
How far
far
are those, the trees along the fence on the right-hand side as you face the property?
are dead.
Okay.
So, these are just a couple of things that I have put down. I have made notes over the last 6 months.
Which I
since-
believe there was landscaping work done after the last time we were here on those
But
trees.
it's never maintained.
Understood.
So maybe if you get a maintenance agreement with a landscaper, that'll help you for this
I will
spring.
give you a copy of it.
Just want you to be a good neighbor, and I hope that you're not running an auto body there.
No, never. Never.
Madam Clerk, I don't think he would, I don't think he could physically do that, given the room that he has in the bay, single bay, and the repair work that's done. I don't even think that's a physical
There's 2
possibility.
crashed vehicles there right now,
You
that
know,
have been there for over a couple.
It's gone. It's gone. They took it, as I told you. This is special car, she bought it from me 1 month ago, and she drove it 1,100 miles, and she did accident. She blamed me that it is my mistake because the brakes, it was bad. She did bring it to us to blame us on the brakes, and the brakes was good. She's trying to take me to the court. That's why she kept it. I was begging her, please take your car out. I don't want to think that I have junk car here, a broken car or crashed car. At the end, I did push her and she took it out. This Kia Spectra, I can give you her phone number and you can call her and ask her this story. She took it out and it's gone. And
So
I
it's
don't
gone?
do anybody worse. I don't
What
have.
about the blue sports car?
Oh, long time ago, it's not there. And all vans, I took all vans. This blue one, I don't want any headaches with my neighbors, or, sorry, I apologize, also with you. I want to be in good order and for not having any headache. It's my level, I can't play with, I can't do any violation.
The other worst vehicle is the one parked all the way next to Quincy Shore Drive, where I drive in first in the
Yeah.
corner. That
Yes.
black truck,
It
It's
is,
all rusted, there's no plates on it.
There's a plow in the front, isn't it?
it is
Yeah,
done,
but
it is, this one is
there's no
done.
plates
but
on it. Yeah.
Promise, I will take it within 48 hours, will be away.
Well, I'm gonna suggest,
Is that the truck that you used for plowing?
No, it's other one, but this one came like maybe 3 weeks or 1 month ago.
I think you should remove, there's been a lot of vehicles there without plates that have been there. And I think those should be removed. I don't know, I don't wanna tell you how to run the business, but it isn't like people driving with their vehicles that are registered and you know, maybe stay a couple of days, get repaired and then out. Most of these vehicles are kind of trashy and without registration plates. So I'm gonna suggest that you need to get rid of all of them.
Are these your vehicles or are they vehicles that for
Some of them are mine, some of them, we fix the mechanic of it and they take it. That's why if you have pictures, you can see 1 month ago are different than today's. And what you see today, another 2 weeks, we're not gonna see anything, something else is gonna come.
So can I suggest that maybe we do a compliance check in 48 hours?
That's fine. Well, you know, even if, I mean, I don't mind, I'll go by there. I understand what he's saying, he gets a vehicle from another dealership without plates and it stays there for a week. But it's still, you're still regulated by the number of vehicles at 10. So, you know, but some of these look like they've been there longer. I'm not doing an inventory every day, don't mind, you know, I'm trying to just leave you alone and just drive by and, but some of these look like they've been there longer.
Whatever you
I
say,
mean,
I'm ready to
what
do.
kind of repairs are you doing that it takes a couple of weeks?
Let me give you a small example. Yesterday, Honda Odyssey 2008 EXL engine, nobody had engine, broken engine. We had to wait until one coming from California. And you know, land transport from California, it takes 1 week or 10 days. And we need another 3-4 days to prepare it and put it in. This car, it has to be 15 days for, and it is registered. And it is hard to me because it's taken one place, unlimited numbers. Already I have only 10 overnight, I cannot bypass them.
It's not our intention to handcuff you, I think it was because there were so many vehicles and it's still, some of the vehicles are still there, but, Chief, I don't know.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to address the auto body thought. My inspector was by there today, did a, I don't know, it wasn't, I'm not sure if it was today. He was by there within a couple of days and did an extensive inspection, noted that fire extinguishers are due to be inspected this month. I wasn't going to bring it up. I did speak to Mr. Elnar before we convened here. But if he was running an auto body shop, my inspector would have picked up on it. He would have had acetylene in there, he would have had other issues. So I don't believe that he is running an auto body shop there. Obviously, he's doing mechanical work, which I believe is part of his license. So. And Inspector Wong did note 22 vehicles, but again, I don't know what time of day he was there. It's not
1 o'clock it was.
So, but just to address the auto body issue.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Board members, any other comments, questions? What do we want to do? What's your pleasure?
I'd like, you know, when I'll go by again, I have some pictures, historic pictures, I just think that some of the vehicles have been there a really long time. I can't say for how long, but some of them have been there a few months, I'd say, at least. Some of them in the back corner, that truck. I think that the ones, if they're not being repaired and they're being stored, I think should
There
be,
is 2 cars, or it has been 2-3 years because I use them for plows. One is for plow my property, the gas station, and my plow I use it for my house.
I went there shortly after a storm, and I didn't see any plow on it, and I didn't see any plates on the vehicle.
Always, I don't take them off, but I
You
turn
just
them
use the
back
plow.
because it's easy to steal the plow blade. That's why I put them always close to the wall for not leaving any room to take them off.
All right. Well, board members, I'll be happy to go by in another week and keep a monitor on it. No problem with that.
And if I can just clarify, so to address your concern, Mr. Duca, your concerned about unregistered vehicles on the lot during the day.
Abandoned.
That are banged up.
Less
If
less of the
it's
issue.
if it's a nice looking car that it looks like it's gonna be resold as a used car, that's one thing. If it's an unregistered car that has, you know, a dent on the front end, a dent on the back, and maybe he's just using it as spare parts for something that might be coming in, that's what we don't want.
Understood. Just to the extent though, those would come under the 10 vehicle limit, I would suspect. And I just want to make sure that other than that February 8th date that Mr. Elnar addressed, there hasn't been any issues of the overnight of exceeding 10 vehicles, but we will certainly address the issues that you brought up, Mr. Duca, with regard to the vehicles that have been there for a while that maybe need to be moved because they're not actually going to be repaired or refurbished for resale either by Mr. Elnar or by one of his customers.
And I mean, the big thing is, it is the business that he's in, you're absolutely right. People are gonna drop off cars there, and occasionally, there's no doubt that he's gonna be going over the 10. Because someone drops off a car at 2 o'clock in the morning because they were in an accident, and that's where the tow truck was told to drop it. That's what's gonna happen. But if he's always within compliance of, you know, 10 cars or 12 cars, if 3 people or 4 people drop off a car in the middle of the night, that's still only gonna bring him up to 16 cars for the one day that he's gonna be over. To go by and see, you know, 25 cars or 30 cars, that's,
Right. And if I hear the board correctly, in general, it's also the issue of not skirting the difference between having cars on for repair and having cars on the property for storage.
yeah.
And I can assure the board that the vehicles unregistered in whatever condition are not there for storage. They're there for purposes, the intent is to see if they can be repaired for either Mr. Elnar or for his customers. So I can comfortably represent to the board that he's certainly, especially given the limitations of the 10 spaces, he's certainly not keeping cars there for storage.
I just want to add one more. There's a common sense factor here. There's been complaints, so there's landscaping, there's trash, there's many vehicles. I think you just got to use some common sense. It's not my intention to drive around the city and count vehicles on lots, but when I start getting calls from the ward council because of a neighbor, then it becomes a problem. So if we could use some common sense, maybe council, you can go look at the vehicles I'm talking about and use some good judgment on what you're keeping on the lot. We're not looking to count vehicles every day.
I can honestly say that I get by there a lot more in the summer than I do in the winter. So,
And just be mindful of the 48-hour rule after the storms to get your dumpster back behind the fence, and the gas being delivered at 3 a.m. You know, if you could just be mindful of the neighbors. I think 7 a.m. is the ordinance that you can start work in a residential area.
Usually I didn't have any control on the delivery. It's mobile companies, they do the delivery.
You can
But I
because
will
you
insist,
own it.
promise, I
Yeah.
will insist and I give them a warning for
Okay.
not having any delivery only during the day.
Thank you.
and the only other thing that I would suggest to the board, Mr. Duca or anybody else, if you drive by and you see a condition, Mr. Elnar is either there or can be reached by phone, by all means, we'd ask that you reach out. Because as you can tell from the last time we were in August, from us being here now, you know, we want to be good neighbors, we want to be good residents of the city of Quincy. Luckily, Mr. Elnar runs a busy business, but, and as you said, common sense. The lines of communication should always be open, and we're happy to hear from anybody if there's an issue, and we'll do our best to address it immediately.
I'll add one final thing. Speaking for myself, you have the biggest lot, one of the biggest lots in this, excuse me, one of the biggest lots in the city. I would entertain increasing the amount of vehicles. My idea of looking at a lot like that is to see landscaping in the front, maybe some flower beds, really, you know, being a good neighbor, and that's what I would encourage you to do.
May I address that? Because it's funny, because when Roger and I were out in the hallway waiting for the hearing, Mr. Elnar actually asked me about maybe going back up from the August 13th reduction of the 19 vehicles, and I frankly said to him, I don't think that's going to be a possibility. Given what you just commented on, we would definitely work with the board if the board would consider adding some spaces, and when I say we would work with the board, when we were here in August, last August, I think, we talked about the possibility of some fencing being put up and some things like that. If we were to get an increase of some spaces and get some spaces back, we would certainly talk to the board about, aside from the landscaping issues, we'd certainly talk to the board about how possibly those spaces could be shielded, in other words, with some fencing with slats in it, so it's difficult to see through, and things like that. So if the board would entertain something like that, either the board can make suggestions, or if you'd allow us, I'd be happy to talk to Mr. Elnar about making some type of proposal to the board in terms of what he might do for facilities, in terms of if some spaces are added, how we can dress those up a little, so to speak.
I think appropriate landscaping would be ideal, rather than fencing. But, you know,
So-
just something tasteful and.
So if we're facing the lot, there's the large area to the left that doesn't really have a lot of landscaping, but could have more landscaping. If there was more landscaping there, and if you added 2 spaces or so there, would that
May
satisfy?
I'm sorry, but I just want to say that before we go any further here, I think that maybe perhaps a community meeting, or at least a chat with the ward counselor is appropriate at this time, before we,
I think maybe, with your suggestions, Duca, maybe I will discuss with Mr. Elnar about maybe putting some type of proposal together that we could submit to the board, and then the board maybe could schedule it for some type of hearing.
Why don't you fix the lot up first before we go for extra spaces?
Given, sir, that would be part of the, in terms of other things that might need to be done, that would be part of the overall plan.
I would, let me see what the place looks like fixed up before you come back and ask for extra spaces.
Okay, we can do that.
Again, that's my thought.
I appreciate it, sir.
First,
Thank
I'm
you.
just saying I'd be open later on. I'm speaking for myself, but the ward counselor is, I think, Ms. Crispo is correct, that you should do that through the ward counselor.
We appreciate it, sir. Thank you.
So would you want to place this on file, or you want to?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to place this item on file for another additional 6 months.
Why don't you do 3 months?
3 months.
And
And we'll revisit it in 3
Because
months.
hopefully by then, the 3 months will be March, April, May, they can do some
Get
type of
something in the
landscape on
spring.
it so you can see it in the
Well,
spring.
maybe not landscape yet. Let's, you should get together with the ward counselor, and
Okay.
I don't want to say that we're going to do anything. I'm just speaking for myself on
3
that.
months is fine.
I mean, I think it's a good idea no matter what.
Oh, I agree. If we're looking at reviewing the landscaping issue, though, I would respectfully ask the board maybe to consider 4 months, because if you're getting into, you're not going to plant until late April or May anyways, and then that would give it a month in order to take hold. But, you know, we're happy to come back. If the board wants us to come back in 3 months, we're happy to come back, and if we're back in 3 months, I hopefully will have some kind of landscaping plan or something that I can present to you.
Well,
to show you
3
what's
months would take
been
you to June, and if you have somebody come in like a,
done. Right in the beginning, yes.
what's that?
I think it's right in the beginning, yeah.
Well, yeah, but I'm not telling you to plant the stuff by seeds, have someone come in like a,
No,
you know what I mean?
no.
Otherwise, it may take you till fall.
Understood.
So, 3 months?
3 months, I'll monitor it between now and then, and we'll get together at that point.
Motion to continue for 3 months.
Motion to continue for 3 months.
Second?
Motion to continue for 3 months made and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. You're all set.
Thank
And
you.
I was excited to see the white van gone, I'm not gonna lie.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. With that, that is the last item on our agenda. We did get notification from the ABCC that the Gypsy Kitchen is appealing our decision to not renew their retail beer and wine license, so that hearing has been scheduled for April 5th at, I think, 1 o'clock or 1:30 at the ABCC. So we will be traveling in for that. welcome. But other than that, I believe that is everything. Do I have a motion to waive the minutes?
Motion made.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. That concludes today's meeting of the licensing board. Thank you very much for everyone being in attendance.
And our next meeting is.
And our next meeting is in 2 weeks, the 20th. March 20th.
Wow, then March, you know.
It's like, oh no, it'll be a